In a quiet corner of the galaxy, far from the bustling centers of interstellar trade and diplomacy, an alien empire known for its cruelty and power roamed the stars. The Zorathians were feared across countless worlds. Their massive ships, sleek and dark like shadows in space, could appear without warning, bringing destruction to any planet that dared oppose them. Entire civilizations had fallen under their rule, their people broken by fear and despair. But on one ordinary day, something unusual happened. A small cargo ship from Earth crossed paths with the Zorathian fleet. The Earth vessel was old and worn, patched together after years of service. It wasn't built for war or exploration, but for carrying supplies between colonies scattered across the solar system. On board were 6 crew members, including Lucy Carter, a young engineer who preferred tinkering with machinery to engaging in idle chatter. When alarms blared throughout the ship, signaling the presence of unidentified vessels nearby, panic gripped most of the crew. They scrambled to prepare for the worst, knowing full well that encounters with unknown forces rarely ended well. But Lucy didn't panic. She moved calmly through the narrow corridors of the ship, her hand steady as she checked critical systems. Her mind worked quickly, assessing the situation. The ship's sensors showed 3 large objects closing in fast. Too fast to be anything friendly. Static crackled over the comms as someone tried to hail the approaching vessels, but there was no response. Then came the inevitable. A bright flash of light filled the cockpit windows as the alien ships fired warning shots, forcing the Earth vessel to halt. Within moments, the Zorathian boarding party materialized inside the cargo hold. Clad in sleek armor that shimmered faintly in the dim lighting, they moved with precision and purpose. Weapons hummed softly at their sides, ready to strike down anyone foolish enough to resist. The crew froze, some trembling visibly, others whispering prayers under their breath. One man dropped to his knees, tears streaming down his face. Another screamed until a Zorathian silenced him with a single motion of his weapon. Through it all, Lucy stood still, her expression unreadable. She watched as the invaders scanned the room, their glowing eyes pausing briefly on each human before moving on. When one of the soldiers stepped toward her, she met his gaze without flinching. There was no trace of fear in her stance, no sign of submission. Instead, she tilted her head slightly, almost as if studying them out of curiosity rather than concern. This reaction caught the attention of the lead soldier, who signaled for his team to restrain the rest of the crew while he addressed her directly. "Who are you?" he demanded, his voice harsh and guttural, translated into English through a device embedded in his helmet. Lucy blinked once, then replied in a calm, measured tone. "I'm Lucy Carter. I fix things." Her answer seemed to confuse him. He leaned closer, his glowing eyes narrowing, as if trying to decipher whether she was mocking him. Most beings they encountered broke under such scrutiny, pleading for mercy or offering useless information in exchange for their lives. But Lucy, she acted as though this were just another problem to solve, another malfunctioning machine to repair. The soldier hesitated, unsure how to proceed. For the first time in his long career, he felt a flicker of unease. Something about this woman was different, and deep down, he wondered if perhaps she knew something he didn't. Lucy was taken to a cold, dimly lit room aboard the Zorathian flagship. The walls were smooth and metallic, reflecting faint blue light that pulsed rhythmically, as if the ship itself were alive. She sat on a hard bench, her hands resting calmly in her lap. Her captors had removed her tools and equipment, but left her otherwise unharmed. Around her, Zorathian soldiers moved with silent efficiency, their glowing eyes scanning every corner of the room. Despite the tension in the air, Lucy remained composed, her breathing steady and her gaze unwavering. After what felt like hours, the door slid open with a sharp hiss. A tall figure entered, clad in ornate armor that marked him as someone important. This was Commander Valon, the leader of the Zorathian forces. His presence commanded respect, or fear, from those who stood before him. He studied Lucy for a moment, his expression unreadable behind his helmet's visor. Then, with deliberate slowness, he stepped closer until he towered over her. "You are not like the others," Valon said, his voice deep and resonant. "They cry. They beg. But you do nothing." Lucy looked up at him, meeting his glowing eyes without hesitation. "What do you want me to do?" she asked simply, her tone polite but firm. Valon frowned, clearly unsettled by her lack of reaction. Most prisoners would have been trembling by now, spilling secrets in a desperate attempt to save themselves. Yet here was this human woman, sitting calmly as though she were waiting for a bus rather than facing an alien warlord. It made no sense to him, and that uncertainty gnawed at his confidence. "I want answers," Valon replied, leaning down so his face was inches from hers. "Tell me about your planet, your defenses, your leaders, everything." Lucy tilted her head slightly, as if considering his request. "Earth doesn't work the way you think it does," she said after a pause. "We're not perfect, but we don't give up easily." Valon straightened, his patience wearing thin. He signaled to one of his soldiers, who activated a holographic display behind Lucy. Images flickered to life, scenes of Earth's cities burning, its people fleeing in terror, its skies filled with Zorethian ships. The simulation played out in vivid detail, designed to overwhelm anyone who watched it. But Lucy didn't flinch. She turned her head to glance at the projections, then shrugged. "That's not going to happen," she said matter-of-factly. "You're good at making threats, but you don't understand humans. We adapt. We fight back. And we keep going, no matter what." Her words only deepened Valon's frustration. He ordered his soldiers to leave the room, leaving him alone with Lucy. Pacing back and forth, he tried a different approach. "Why aren't you afraid?" he demanded. "Do you truly believe your primitive species can stand against us?" Lucy smiled faintly, a gesture that seemed both reassuring and infuriating. "Fear doesn't help me fix things," she said. "And right now, I'm trying to figure out how to make sure my people survive this. That's all that matters." For the first time in decades, Valon felt a twinge of doubt. He had spent his entire career conquering worlds, breaking spirits, and instilling dread wherever he went. Fear was the foundation of his empire, a tool more powerful than any weapon. But Lucy's calm defiance challenged everything he believed. If she wasn't afraid, did that mean Earth posed a greater threat than he realized? Or was she simply too naive to grasp the danger? Unable to shake his unease, Valon decided to take drastic measures. He summoned his medical team and ordered them to scan Lucy's brain, searching for any anomalies or hidden weaknesses. As they led her away, Lucy glanced back at him, her expression unchanged. "You'll see," she said softly. "Humans aren't easy to break." Valon watched her go, his mind racing. For the first time, he wondered if capturing her had been a mistake, or if her presence aboard his ship might bring about something far worse than he could imagine. News of Lucy's behavior spread quickly among the Zorethian crew. Whispers echoed through the corridors of the flagship, carried by soldiers and technicians alike. They spoke of the human woman who showed no fear, whose calm demeanor seemed to mock their empire's reputation for instilling terror. It wasn't just her words or actions that unsettled them. It was the way she looked at them, as if they were nothing more than another puzzle to solve. The idea that someone could face the mighty Zorethians without trembling challenged everything they believed about their dominance. Lieutenant Kale, one of Commander Valon's most trusted officers, found himself drawn to the mystery. He had been present during Lucy's initial interrogation and couldn't shake the feeling that there was something extraordinary about her. While others dismissed her composure as foolishness or denial, Kale suspected it ran deeper. Humans, he knew, were an unpredictable species, emotional, fragile, and often illogical. Yet Lucy didn't fit that description. She was steady, almost unnervingly so, and it intrigued him. Kale decided to observe her more closely. Under the pretense of overseeing security protocols, he visited the detention area where Lucy was being held. She sat on the edge of her bench, her posture relaxed, as though she were waiting for a train rather than imprisoned aboard an alien warship. When she noticed Kale watching her, she offered a small smile, a gesture that caught him off guard. "You're not like the others," Kale said finally, breaking the silence. His voice was softer than usual, less commanding. Lucy raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "The others, your crew, they broke easily. But you?" He hesitated, searching for the right words. "You don't seem afraid." Lucy shrugged. "Being afraid won't change anything. You've got all the weapons, sure. But fear doesn't fix problems. It just makes them worse." Her answer puzzled Kel further. To the Zorathians, fear was a weapon, a means of control. Without it, their empire would crumble. Yet Lucy acted as though fear were optional, something she could simply choose to ignore. Was this a human trait? Or was she hiding something? Determined to uncover the truth, Cale began asking questions of his own. He reviewed recordings of Lucy's interrogations, noting how she responded to threats with logic rather than emotion. He studied data collected during her medical scans, which revealed nothing unusual about her brain activity. Physically, mentally, and emotionally, she appeared to be an ordinary human. And yet, her behavior defied explanation. One evening, Cale approached Commander Valon with his findings. "Sir," he began cautiously, "there's something we're missing. This woman, she's not acting out of ignorance or bravery. She genuinely believes Earth can resist us." Valon scowled, his frustration evident. "Belief means nothing without power. She's bluffing." "Perhaps," Cale replied. "But what if she isn't? What if Earth knows something we don't? A secret weapon, a strategy, anything." The thought lingered in Valon's mind long after Cale left. Could Lucy's confidence stem from knowledge of some hidden strength? The Zorathians prided themselves on their ability to crush resistance before it even began. If Earth truly had a way to fight back, it would undermine everything they stood for. For the first time, Valon felt a flicker of doubt, a question that gnawed at the edges of his certainty. Meanwhile, Lucy continued to adapt to her surroundings. During her brief periods outside her cell, she paid close attention to the ship's layout, the routines of the crew, and the subtle hierarchies among the Zorathians. She also noticed Rin, a young technician who occasionally glanced her way with a mix of curiosity and sympathy. Though she couldn't be sure, Lucy sensed an opportunity, an ally who might share her desire to challenge the Empire's grip. As days passed, Lucy's presence became a growing source of unease for the Zorathians. Her lack of fear wasn't just confusing, it was contagious. Soldiers whispered about her defiance, wondering if perhaps the humans were stronger than they appeared. Even Valon, usually unshakable, found himself questioning whether capturing Lucy had been a victory, or the beginning of something far more dangerous. Commander Valon was not a man, nor an alien, who accepted uncertainty well. For decades, he had built his reputation on control. Fear was his weapon, and submission was the only acceptable outcome. Yet Lucy Carter refused to play by those rules. Her calm defiance gnawed at him, planting seeds of doubt in his mind. If she wasn't afraid, did that mean Earth had a hidden strength? Or was she simply too naive to understand the gravity of her situation? Determined to break her composure, Valon escalated his tactics. He ordered his crew to create a series of simulations designed to overwhelm even the strongest minds. These holographic projections were vivid and immersive, crafted to make the viewer feel as though they were living through their worst nightmares. The first scenario showed Earth under attack, cities reduced to rubble, oceans boiling away, and billions of people screaming as Zorathian ships rained destruction from above. Valon watched closely as the simulation played out before Lucy's eyes. But Lucy didn't scream. She didn't cry or beg for mercy. Instead, she crossed her arms and leaned back, studying the images with a critical eye. When the simulation ended, she turned to Valon and said, "Nice effects, but you've got the geography wrong. That mountain range isn't where you think it is." Her casual critique infuriated Valon. He clenched his fists but forced himself to remain calm. "You think this is a game?" he snapped. "Your planet will burn unless you cooperate." Lucy shrugged. "If you're trying to scare me, you're wasting your time. Scared people make bad decisions. I prefer to focus on solutions." Valon growled under his breath and signaled for the next simulation. This time, the projection showed Lucy's fellow captives being executed one by one. Their faces twisted in terror as Zorathian soldiers dragged them into view, weapons raised. The scene was brutal and graphic, meant to shatter any sense of hope. But when the final shot rang out and the screen went dark, Lucy simply shook her head. "You really don't get it, do you?" she said, meeting Valon's gaze. "Killing hostages won't change anything. Humans don't give up because someone dies. We keep going. That's what makes us strong." Her words hit Valon like a punch to the gut. For the first time, he began to wonder if Lucy's confidence came not from ignorance, but from truth. Could humanity truly be different from the other species they had conquered? Was there something about these fragile beings that made them resilient in ways he couldn't comprehend? Desperate for answers, Valon ordered another round of medical scans. This time, he brought in the Empire's best neuroscientists to examine Lucy's brain activity. They poked and prodded, running test after test, searching for any sign of abnormality. Hours later, they delivered their report. Lucy's brain was perfectly ordinary. There were no unusual patterns, no heightened resistance to stress or fear. By all accounts, she was just a regular human. The news left Valon more frustrated than ever. How could someone so ordinary remain so unshaken? It defied logic. And yet every time he looked at Lucy, he saw a challenge, a threat, that he couldn't ignore. Unbeknownst to Valon, Lucy was also observing him. She noticed the cracks forming beneath his confident exterior, the way his jaw tightened when she spoke, the flicker of unease in his glowing eyes. She realized that her lack of fear wasn't just confusing him, it was unraveling him. Slowly, she began to piece together a strategy. If fear was the foundation of the Zorathian Empire, then perhaps courage could bring it down. One day, during a routine check of her cell, Lucy struck up a conversation with Rin, the young technician who had shown her occasional glances of sympathy. At first, Rin was hesitant, wary of saying too much. But Lucy's calm demeanor put him at ease. "Why do you stay with them?" she asked gently. "Do you really believe in what they're doing?" Rin hesitated, then sighed. "It's not about belief," he admitted. "It's survival. If I don't follow orders, I'm dead." Lucy nodded thoughtfully. What if there was another way? A way to fight back without giving in to fear? Her question lingered in the air between them, planting a seed of doubt in Rin's mind. As he walked away, Lucy smiled faintly. She knew she couldn't win this battle alone. But maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to. Rin returned to Lucy's cell the next day, his steps hesitant but deliberate. He glanced around cautiously before speaking, ensuring no one else was nearby. "You asked me about fighting back," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "What did you mean?" Lucy leaned forward slightly, her expression calm and steady. "I meant exactly what I said. The Zorathians think they're unbeatable because they control through fear. But what happens when people stop being afraid? Fear is their power source. It keeps them strong. Take that away, and they're just bullies with fancy weapons." Rin frowned, his glowing eyes flickering with doubt. "It's not that simple. They've conquered thousands of worlds. Billions of beings follow their orders without question, because they believe resistance is impossible," Lucy replied. "But it's not. Look at me. Do I seem like someone who thinks Earth can't win?" Rin hesitated, then shook his head. "No, you don't. But you're different." "Not really," Lucy said with a small smile. "I'm just human, and humans are stubborn. When we see something worth fighting for, we don't give up. That's why your empire should be scared of us." Her words struck a chord deep within Rin. He had always believed the Zorathian Empire was unshakable, its dominance absolute. But now, standing in front of Lucy, he began to wonder if she might be right. What if Earth's defiance wasn't an isolated incident? What if other species could rise up too, inspired by humanity's courage? Over the next few days, Rin began sharing fragments of information with Lucy whenever he could. He told her about the inner workings of the flagship, the routines of the crew, and the vulnerabilities in their systems. In return, Lucy shared stories of Earth, its diversity, its resilience, and its capacity for hope even in the darkest times. She described how humans had faced countless challenges throughout history and always found a way to endure. "You make it sound so easy," Rin said one evening, his tone tinged with awe. "Like fear is just a choice you can turn off." "It's not easy," Lucy admitted. "Fear is real, and it's powerful. But it doesn't have to control you. Sometimes, all it takes is one person standing tall to remind everyone else that they're stronger than they think." Rin nodded slowly, absorbing her words. For the first time in his life, he felt a spark of rebellion stirring inside him, a desire to challenge the empire he had served unquestioningly for years. But he knew acting on that desire would come at a cost. If he were caught helping Lucy, his punishment would be swift and merciless. Despite the risks, Rin couldn't ignore the truth Lucy had shown him. The Zorathians weren't invincible. Their power depended on fear, and fear could be overcome. Together, they began formulating a plan. Using his access to the ship's systems, Rin smuggled tools and supplies to Lucy, allowing her to tinker with the devices in her cell. Slowly, piece by piece, she built a device capable of intercepting communications between the flagship and the rest of the fleet. Meanwhile, Lucy continued to push back against Vaylon during their interrogations. Each session became more tense as her refusal to yield frustrated him further. One day, after another failed attempt to break her, Vaylon stormed out of the room, leaving Lucy alone with Lieutenant Kale. "You're making a mistake," Kale warned quietly, his glowing eyes fixed on her. "Commander Vaylon isn't known for patience. Push him too far, and he'll destroy you. And your planet." Lucy met his gaze without flinching. "Maybe. But destroying Earth won't fix your problem. It'll only prove my point. That fear is all you know. And when people stop being afraid, your empire falls apart." Kale didn't respond immediately. Instead, he studied her face, searching for any sign of hesitation or weakness. Finding none, he turned and left the room, his thoughts in turmoil. As the days passed, Lucy's resolve only grew stronger. With Rin's help, she prepared for the moment when she would strike back, not just for herself, but for everyone living under the shadow of the Zorathian Empire. She knew the odds were stacked against her, but she also knew one thing for certain. Sometimes, the smallest acts of bravery could ignite the largest revolutions. Commander Vaylon had grown desperate. His attempts to break Lucy Carter had failed repeatedly, and her calm defiance was spreading like a quiet storm through the ranks of his crew. Whispers of her courage reached even the lowest levels of the ship, planting seeds of doubt among soldiers who had always followed orders without question. For the first time in his career, Vaylon felt the foundation of his empire trembling beneath him. He decided to take drastic action, one final effort to regain control. He summoned Lucy to the flagship's main communications hub, a massive chamber filled with glowing screens and humming machinery. The room buzzed with activity as technicians worked tirelessly to maintain contact with the rest of the fleet. Vaylon stood at the center, flanked by armed guards, his expression grim but determined. When Lucy entered, escorted by 2 soldiers, she scanned the room with quiet curiosity, taking note of every detail. "You've caused enough trouble," Vaylon said, his voice sharp and commanding. "Now you will deliver a message to your people, a message that will ensure their surrender." Lucy raised an eyebrow. "And what makes you think I'll do that?" Vaylon gestured to one of the screens, which displayed a live feed of Earth. The planet looked peaceful from space, its blue oceans and swirling clouds a stark contrast to the dark intentions of the Zorathians. "Because if you don't," he replied coldly, "I will show your species no mercy." Lucy didn't respond immediately. She stepped closer to the screen, her eyes fixed on the image of her home. Then, with a small nod, she turned back to Vaylon. "Fine. Let's record your message." The Zorathians set up the transmission equipment quickly, positioning Lucy in front of a camera lens that would broadcast her face across the galaxy. As the red light blinked to signal the start of the recording, Lucy took a deep breath and began speaking. "To the people of Earth," she said, her voice steady and clear, "this is Lucy Carter. I'm alive, and I want you to know that the Zorathians are not unbeatable. They rely on fear to control us, but fear is a choice, and so is bravery. Stand together. Believe in yourselves. If we refuse to give in, they have no power over us." For a moment, Vaylon looked satisfied. Her words sounded like a plea for surrender, a call to submit to the Empire's might. But then Lucy added something unexpected, a coded phrase embedded within her speech, barely noticeable to anyone unfamiliar with Earth's resistance networks. "Remember Project Horizon," she said softly, her tone unchanged. "It's our best shot." The transmission ended, and the room fell silent. Vaylon stared at Lucy, his glowing eyes narrowing. "What was that last part?" he demanded. "Just a reminder," Lucy replied calmly. "Something my people need to hear." Vaylon hesitated, unsure whether to press further. To him, the message appeared harmless, a desperate attempt to rally a doomed population. But deep down, a flicker of unease remained. What if she had found a way to outsmart him again? Unbeknownst to Vaylon, Lucy's coded phrase sparked immediate action on Earth. Daniel Harper, a former soldier leading one of the largest resistance groups, recognized the reference to Project Horizon instantly. It was a plan developed months earlier, a coordinated attack targeting key Zorathian supply lines and communication hubs. Until now, the resistance had lacked the confidence to execute it, but Lucy's message changed everything. Across the planet, guerrilla fighters sprang into action. Small teams launched surprise assaults on Zorathian outposts, disabling equipment and stealing valuable resources. News of these victories spread quickly, igniting hope among enslaved populations on other worlds. Inspired by Lucy's defiance, oppressed species began staging their own rebellions, striking back against their Zorathian overlords. On board the flagship, Rin noticed the ripple effects of Lucy's broadcast. Reports poured in from across the Empire, detailing unrest and sabotage on multiple fronts. The once unshakable Zorathian forces were stretched thin, struggling to maintain order as rebellion erupted around them. Rin couldn't help but feel a surge of pride knowing he had played a role in this upheaval. Meanwhile, Lucy continued to prepare for her escape. With Rin's help, she finalized the device she had been building, a tool capable of disrupting the flagship's internal systems long enough for her to slip away unnoticed. The plan was risky, but Lucy knew it was her only chance to return to Earth and join the fight directly. As chaos unfolded across the galaxy, Vaylon realized too late that Lucy's message had done far more than he intended. Instead of securing humanity's surrender, it had ignited a firestorm of resistance, one that threatened to consume the entire Zorathian Empire. Lucy's escape plan was set into motion on a quiet night aboard the flagship. The corridors were dimly lit, and most of the crew had retreated to their quarters for rest. Rin, true to his word, had disabled the security cameras in key areas, giving Lucy a narrow window of opportunity. Armed with the device she had built, a small but powerful disruptor, she moved quickly and quietly through the ship, her footsteps barely making the sound. Her first stop was the maintenance bay, where she reprogrammed a service drone to create a distraction. With a few quick adjustments, the drone began emitting loud, erratic noises and flashing its lights as it zoomed through the halls. Alarms blared, drawing the attention of nearby soldiers who rushed to investigate the commotion. Meanwhile, Lucy slipped away, heading toward the hangar bay where smaller fighter craft were stored. Rin met her halfway, his glowing eyes wide with anxiety. "You don't have much time," he whispered urgently. "They'll figure out what's happening soon." "I know," Lucy replied, her voice calm despite the urgency of the moment. "Thank you, Rin, for everything." Rin hesitated, then nodded. "Good luck, Lucy Carter. Show them what humans are made of." With that, he turned and disappeared into the shadows, leaving Lucy to continue her mission alone. She reached the hangar bay without further incident, her heart pounding but her mind focused. The space was vast, filled with rows of sleek Zorathian fighters and supply ships. She scanned the area, looking for the smallest vessel, one she could pilot back to Earth. Her choice was a compact reconnaissance craft, designed for speed rather than combat. It wouldn't be easy to fly, especially since she wasn't familiar with Zorathian technology, but it was her best chance. Lucy climbed inside and immediately got to work, using her engineering skills to bypass the ship's security protocols. Her hands moved swiftly over the controls, deciphering alien symbols and adjusting settings until the engines roared to life. Just as she prepared to launch, the hangar doors slid open, revealing a group of armed soldiers led by Lieutenant Kale. He stepped forward, his weapon raised, but his expression conflicted. "Don't do this," he said, his voice firm yet tinged with uncertainty. "You won't make it far." Lucy didn't respond. Instead, she activated the disruptor she had brought with her, sending a pulse of energy through the hangar that temporarily disabled the soldiers' weapons and communication devices. Taking advantage of the confusion, she hit the controls, and the fighter shot forward, blasting out of the hangar and into the cold emptiness of space. Behind her, the flagship scrambled to give chase, launching several larger vessels in pursuit. But Lucy's smaller craft was faster and more agile. She weaved through asteroid fields and debris, evading their attempts to corner her. Her training as an engineer paid off as she used every trick she knew to keep ahead of her pursuers. Back on Earth, Lucy's message continued to inspire action. Daniel Harper and his resistance fighters coordinated strikes against Zorathian targets with increasing confidence. News of Lucy's escape spread quickly, fueling hope among the human population. Stories of her bravery became legends, whispered in bunkers and shouted during rallies. People began to believe, not just in Lucy, but in themselves. As Lucy raced toward Earth, she couldn't help but smile. She had started this journey as a prisoner, but now she was a symbol of defiance. The Zorathians had underestimated humanity's spirit, and they were about to learn just how dangerous that mistake could be. The galaxy was changing, one act of courage at a time, and Lucy Carter was leading the charge. Lucy's return to Earth was nothing short of miraculous. The small reconnaissance craft she had stolen from the Zorathians streaked through the atmosphere, its alien design drawing immediate attention from both human resistance forces and Zorathian patrols still orbiting the planet. For a tense few moments, Lucy feared her ship might be shot down before she could land safely. But luck, or perhaps skill, was on her side. Using evasive maneuvers she had learned during her escape, she dodged incoming fire and touched down in a remote desert region where Daniel Harper's resistance group had set up one of their hidden bases. When Lucy emerged from the craft, battered but alive, the sight of her sent waves of excitement through the resistance fighters who greeted her. They crowded around, cheering and clapping, their faces lighting up with hope at the return of someone they had come to see as a hero. Daniel Harper pushed his way to the front of the group, his weathered face breaking into a rare smile. "You made it," he said, clasping her hand firmly. "We weren't sure if we ever see you again." "I wasn't sure either," Lucy admitted, brushing dust off her clothes. "But I brought something back with me, a reminder that they're not unbeatable." Over the next few hours, Lucy shared everything she had learned aboard the Zorathian flagship, their weaknesses, their reliance on fear, and the growing unrest among enslaved populations across the galaxy. She explained how Rin, the young technician, had helped her gather information, and how her coded message had ignited rebellion beyond Earth. Her words inspired the fighters, reinforcing their belief that victory was possible. With renewed determination, the Resistance prepared for their next major operation. Lucy joined Daniel and his team in planning a daring assault on a key Zorathian outpost located near Earth's equator. This facility served as a hub for communications and supply lines, making it a critical target. If they could disable it, they would deal a significant blow to the Empire's ability to coordinate attacks. The night of the mission arrived quickly. Under the cover of darkness, Lucy and a small squad of fighters approached the outpost on foot, moving silently through dense jungle terrain. Their goal was to infiltrate the base and plant explosives in strategic locations while avoiding detection. Armed with makeshift weapons and gadgets cobbled together from scavenged parts, the team relied on stealth and teamwork to stay alive. Inside the outpost, chaos reigned. News of uprisings on other worlds had reached the Zorathian troops stationed there, leaving them anxious and distracted. Morale was low, and discipline was beginning to crack. Lucy and her team exploited this weakness, slipping past guards who were more focused on arguing among themselves than monitoring their surroundings. As the explosives were set, Lucy took a moment to observe the scene around her. Alien soldiers paced nervously, their glowing eyes darting toward every sound or movement. Some whispered urgently in their language, clearly unnerved by reports of rebellion spreading like wildfire. It struck Lucy how fragile the Empire truly was beneath its facade of power. Fear kept it standing, but when that fear faltered, so did everything else. The explosion came suddenly, lighting up the night sky with a brilliant flash. The outpost crumbled into flames, severing the Zorathians' communication network and crippling their local operations. Cheers erupted from the Resistance fighters as they retreated into the jungle, their mission accomplished. Back at the hidden base, news of the successful attack spread rapidly, boosting morale even further. For the first time in years, humanity dared to dream of freedom. And Lucy Carter stood at the center of it all, proof that even the smallest acts of courage could spark monumental change. The destruction of the Zorathian outposts sent shockwaves through their empire. What had once been a minor rebellion on Earth was now a full-blown threat, one that couldn't be ignored. Reports flooded in from across the galaxy, revolts on enslaved planets, sabotage of supply lines, and even mutinies among lower-ranking Zorathian soldiers who no longer believed in their leader's invincibility. The cracks in the Empire's foundation were growing wider by the day, and at the center of it all was Lucy Carter. Back at the Resistance base, Lucy worked tirelessly alongside Daniel Harper and his team. They coordinated attacks, gathered intelligence, and rallied more people to join their cause. Word of her bravery spread far beyond Earth, inspiring others to rise up. Humans, once dismissed as weak and insignificant by the Zorathians, were proving themselves to be resourceful and relentless. Lucy became a symbol of hope, not just for her own species, but for every being under the Empire's oppressive rule. Commander Valon, meanwhile, faced mounting pressure from his superiors. The losses were piling up, and the unrest showed no signs of slowing. His failure to break Lucy during her captivity haunted him, a constant reminder of how much he had underestimated humanity. Desperate to regain control, he assembled a massive fleet and set course for Earth, determined to crush the rebellion once and for all. When news of the approaching armada reached the Resistance, fear rippled through their ranks. The Zorathians were bringing overwhelming force, a fleet so large it blotted out the stars in the night sky. For the first time since Lucy's return, doubt crept into the hearts of some fighters. Could they really stand against such power? But Lucy refused to let despair take hold. She called a meeting with the Resistance leaders, her voice steady and reassuring. "They want us to be afraid," she said, pacing slowly as she spoke. "That's their plan, to make us feel small and helpless. But we're not. We've proven that already. Every attack we've launched, every victory we've won, it shows them they can't win unless we let them." Daniel nodded, his expression grim but resolute. "So what's the plan? How do we stop an entire fleet?" Lucy smiled faintly. "We hit them where it hurts most. Their confidence. If we can show them they're not untouchable, the rest will follow." The Resistance devised a bold strategy. Using scavenged parts and stolen technology, they built decoy ships designed to mimic the appearance of larger vessels. These drones would serve as distractions, drawing the Zorathian fleet away from key targets while smaller, faster human ships struck at their weakest points. It was a risky plan, but Lucy believed it could work, if everyone played their part. As the battle began, the skies above Earth lit up with streaks of fire and bursts of energy. The Zorathian fleet unleashed devastating salvos, raining destruction down on the planet below. But the Resistance fighters fought back with everything they had, dodging enemy fire and launching counterattacks with precision. Lucy herself led one of the strike teams, piloting a modified fighter craft straight into the heart of the chaos. Amidst the fighting, Lucy spotted Commander Valon's flagship looming in the distance. With grim determination, she locked onto its position and charged forward, weaving through explosions and debris. Her goal wasn't to destroy the ship outright, but to deliver a message. One final blow to the Zorathians' sense of superiority. Breaking through the flagship's defenses, Lucy transmitted a live broadcast directly to the fleet. "This is Lucy Carter," she said, her voice cutting through the noise of battle. "You came here thinking you'd crush us. But look around you. Your empire is falling apart because you put your faith in fear, and fear isn't enough to stop us." Her words echoed across the battlefield, reaching both allies and enemies alike. For the first time, many Zorathian soldiers paused, questioning whether their cause was truly worth dying for. And as the tide of the battle turned in humanity's favor, it became clear the age of the Zorathian Empire was coming to an end. The final battle raged on, a chaotic storm of fire and fury in the skies above Earth. Lucy's broadcast had struck a nerve, not only among the humans fighting for their freedom, but also within the ranks of the Zorathian forces. Some soldiers hesitated, their glowing eyes flickering with doubt as they questioned the righteousness of their cause. Others continued to fight, driven by loyalty or fear of punishment, but the cracks in their unity were undeniable. Commander Valon watched the chaos unfold from the bridge of his flagship, his expression unreadable behind his helmet. The once mighty leader who thrived on instilling terror now found himself surrounded by it, his own fleet faltering, his strategies crumbling, and his empire teetering on the brink of collapse. For the first time, he felt truly powerless. Lucy's fighter craft darted through the battlefield, narrowly avoiding enemy fire as she closed in on the flagship. Her plan was risky, almost reckless, but she knew this was her chance to end the war. With a deep breath, she activated the last of her ship's energy reserves and launched a direct assault on the flagship's command center. Explosions rocked the massive vessel as her small craft breached its defenses, leaving a trail of destruction in her wake. Inside the flagship, alarms blared and lights flashed red. Valon stood frozen, staring at the monitors that showed Lucy's relentless advance. Lieutenant Kale approached him, his voice trembling. "Sir, we're losing control. The fleet is breaking apart." Valon clenched his fists, his mind racing. He had always believed fear was the key to maintaining order, but now he realized how fragile that belief truly was. Fear could only hold people down for so long before they rose up, and when they did, nothing could stop them. Summoning what remained of his resolve, Valon made his way to the hangar bay, intending to confront Lucy personally. He couldn't let her win. Not like this. But when he arrived, he found her standing calmly amidst the wreckage, her hands raised but her posture unyielding. "You've lost," Lucy said simply, meeting his gaze without hesitation. "It doesn't have to end this way. Surrender, and maybe there's still hope for your people." For a moment, Valon said nothing. His glowing eyes dimmed slightly as he processed her words. Then, with a heavy sigh, he lowered his weapon. "You humans, you're unlike anything I've ever seen. As Valon surrendered, the remaining Zorithian forces began to retreat, their morale shattered. Across the galaxy, enslaved populations rose up in defiance, inspired by humanity's victory. The rebellion that started with Lucy's quiet courage had grown into a movement that toppled an empire. Back on Earth, celebrations erupted as news of the victory spread. People poured into the streets, waving makeshift flags and cheering for the heroes who had fought for their freedom. Lucy stood quietly among them, her heart swelling with pride, but her mind focused on the work ahead. Rebuilding wouldn't be easy, but she knew humanity was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Daniel Harper approached her, a rare smile on his face. "You did it, Lucy. You changed everything." She shook her head gently. "Not me. All of us. Together." In the days that followed, Lucy became a legend, a symbol of resilience and hope. Her story reminded everyone that even in the darkest times, courage could light the way forward. And though the scars of war would take years to heal, one thing was certain. Humanity had proven it could stand tall against any threat. The galaxy entered a new era, one defined not by fear, but by the strength of those willing to fight for a better future. And at the heart of it all was Lucy Carter, a simple engineer who refused to give up, and in doing so, changed the course of history.